is everything. I listen to Bloomberg Radio, and the context is everything. Okay. So this was very unexpected, but when I discovered my father, as he was getting older, handed me this book one day and said, you remember this guy? And I'm looking at the book. It was a Whitney Museum catalog. And I was just clueless, like, I don't know what this is. So he holds his hand about 2 feet off the ground, and he goes, you remember that little kid that you used to draw with? And I was like, oh my God, this is him. So I think it was around 2017 or so. So again, I studied and looked him up, and I decided to, I was involved with a project called Celebrate Ossning, where we took a tour through all the famous people that had some connection with Ossning. Andy Warhol had a series of electric chair prints that he made from Sing Sing. So Andy Warhol's on that list. As well as people like the Gershwin brothers. They spent a summer on Hoag's Cross Road, which was Ossning, wrote one of their musicals. Again, I think this might be something on Wikipedia, but if you folks have the inclination, I have some cards which you can photograph with your phone, and then my email. I'm glad to fill you in on anything. So this is to honor Jean-Michel Basquiat on his visits to Ossning. He was included now. That was Senator David Carlucci of Ossning was the senator. And then I want to share, and we have a lady, very creative artist here, Scarlett Antonia. The Peekskill Private Eyes was a street theater production that she and a couple of other artists had put together, and it took place on the streets of Peekskill, about 10 different locations. And the first day I traveled along, because it was over a weekend, they did 2 showings, and then I brought my camera the next day, and I figured, let me follow this different kind of street theater that is going to expose Peekskill. So a long time passed, and then I just figured that at some point I could reinvigorate this. So we had a premiere in 2019 of the film, and there were quite a few folks, including one of our elected officials, was Miss Riley is in the film. Her and her husband were tour guides, and they were looking for a lost painting that was stolen. My nephew played the art collector who reported the stolen artwork. His name is Matthew Benson, and now he works for an after-school program called NECS, alongside another group called Arts 10566, which is Wilfredo Morel started a not-for-profit to give kids a safe place to go after school with creative projects. I think Mr. Ramon Fernandez is here. I saw your daughter painting a beautiful mural down on near Water Street, near the lumber yard there, and there's a stone concrete. So art is becoming more and more a focus of Peekskill, and personally, I would like to see Peekskill use that more as a draw. In other words, we're an incubator. We're a place where creative artists start their work. This is where, again, I'm helping out here in an organic garden that helps grow organic food for 3 of the food pantries in this area. So I started to, it's like a garden, the arts. If we nurture it, if we tend it, if we export it outside, we need to keep that Peekskill name, not just in Peekskill. We need to get our name associated with creativity all up and down the Hudson River. Because, as you know, Peekskill hasn't imitated many times that Peekskill started. These other towns in the Hudson Valley, they pick it up. Hey, we should do that, we should do that. So it gets a little hard to tell one from the other. So a good friend named Janet Mora was instrumental for getting me involved in this. This is another Peekskill artist named Mary Crescenzo. Her and I were involved with a theater group called Blueberry Pond Art Center. And this is from a gala that we had. This costume was retired from the Metropolitan Opera. And we had a play production that took place in an abandoned building that became a theater in Ossning called Cedar Lane Park. So it's now the Cedar Lane Art Center. That estate used to be owned by a wealthy family named Kress, K-R-E-S-S. They owned 5 and dime chains all across the United States, about 250. They were competing with Woolworths and with Kresge and with W.T. Grant, and even J.J. Newberry. He got his start working for Kress. and then he went out on his own. See, in those days, when people put their name on companies, it made a bit of a difference, right? You know, you remember the Frank Perdue ad? That's my name on that chicken, so it better be good. Now people think all kinds of crazy names. What's a Google? What is this stuff? Twitter and X? I mean, you sign your name X if you're illiterate. I don't know what's going on with that, but unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to find who's involved with those companies. Whereas before, Samuel H. Kress, the company's called S.H. Kress & Company, and his brother Rush is the man who lived on a 72-acre estate in Ossning. Half of it is now Cedar Lane Park, a public park. The other half is a children's rehabilitation center called Sunshine. So I'm glad to see the property is being utilized by the public and by folks who are recovering from various things, especially children. Okay, so this is a part of an idea that I've had for some time. I call it cinematic diplomacy. Now, everyone has now got a camera now in their phones. And by the way, it's not a phone, it's a computer that makes calls. Okay, I worked in IT for 25 years. And I spent 10 years with IBM. I won't go into the big story how I got into IBM, but I'll just say I auditioned for IBM. That's how I got in. Okay? So now I just want to show you some t-shirts. I didn't realize that all the years when I was discouraged from being an artist by a junior high school teacher, he went over to one of my works and he takes his pencil and puts a dot right in the middle of my work and he goes, "Unless you make your art conform to these dots, it'll never be any good." And I stopped. Remember the story about drawing with Jean-Michel? Anyway, music became my vehicle, primary vehicle. But I never forgot that visual sense, and I designed t-shirts, I've designed banners for bands and for poetry groups and things. And I started thinking about this when my father reacquainted me with Jean-Michel Basquiat. And I said, you know, I need to get back into my visual expression. Because we have so many words today. What are words meaning? You know, remember 1984? War is peace. Peace is war. We were living in those days. Those predictions were amazingly accurate, if you think about it. Okay. Now I'm showing you, remember punch cards? Yep. That's one of my punch cards from IBM. Okay. I started out in data entry. And the reason I got it, because I got a tip from a gentleman who I met to apply to IBM. They were looking for females to do jobs traditionally done by men, you know, repair technicians, going out there in the field, and looking for men to do jobs traditionally done by women. So he told me, you apply as a secretary. And he goes, can you type? Now, thank God I had a personal typing class in high school before college, so I could type. But when they saw my scores, they said, well, you're not going to be secretary. But we have an administrative position for you. So that was my foot in the door. 3 months temporary, then I got hired permanently. And I finished being a network infrastructure engineer. Not Al Gore, helped build the internet. I put Sony on their first internet service. I worked in their data center, which was 1600 Albany Post Road, right across the street from the Sleepy Hollow Country Club. They had a secret location. There was no Sony. All they had was a big 600 out front. 600 Albany Post Road. So this is a photograph of the IBM computer group I belong to as an administrative person. Our first 1,000 computers sold. So I'm there on the left there. Now in these days, we had three-piece suits, but I sometimes would, you know, feel a little, you know, collared by that. So here I'm wearing black pants with a matching jacket and vest. And someone came with a camera, and I took so much flack. Like, what are you doing? How were you dressed there? What was that? I said, look, I wasn't expecting to be in the picture. This was a celebration. I went up and got a piece of cake. Somebody took a picture. So that was, I learned a lot about corporate culture and politics and also what to say and what not to say. Now I'm showing you this because the Kress family set up a foundation. And that foundation was to help educate curators, conservators, administrators in museums, basically to make it more professional. As you know now, you hear that the art world is a wild, wild west. It's unregulated, and there's all kinds of stuff going on from, you know, NFTs and people selling this and that, so you have to be very careful. So long story short, a lot of the techniques that the Kress Foundation sponsored were responsible for this work of art by Leonardo da Vinci called Salvator Mundi, which means Savior of the World. This is a Sunday Times magazine with the picture on the cover, and there was a lot of controversy about this work of art. I actually visited, unbeknownst to me at the time, because it was very hush-hush when it was being restored for about 6 years in New York City, but I visited the NYU Institute of Fine Arts building. I just called up the public affairs person and said, listen, I'm writing a book on the Kress family. I would like more information and take a tour. So I toured the studio where the woman, her name is Diane Modestini, was restoring the Leonardo da Vinci painting. Of course, I didn't see that because it was under lock and key. So this was a part of my life where I was, I was there, I'm reading the story. So this is a painting that is still in process, not totally finished, but this is Diane Modestini in her studio. Now, I actually met her assistant. She was not there, but I corresponded with her a couple of times. She was very nice about information regarding the Kress Foundation and et cetera, because her husband, Mario Modestini, who came from Italy, and a lot of the Kress collection was Italian art, even though the family was German. If you look just on a map, you'll see that Germany and Italy are kind of kissing cousins. And so there was, over the years, there has been many connections culturally, politically, with Italy. Both countries, as a matter of fact, Germany was not a true country until about 1863, and Italy in 1867. They were separate little principalities, all kind of running themselves, and they were part of an empire. We had an emperor who was usually in Spain somewhere with his dynastic connections. So nationalism is in Europe is very recent when you think about it. So this was in her studio as I kind of remember it, and I intend to gift some of these works of art to her. This is a talk that I gave in 2019 in the Briarcliff Scarborough Historical Society on the Kress collection, and some of their works are here. There was no Leonardo da Vinci in the Kress collection, but there was an artist named Bernardino Luini who taught Leonardo da Vinci, is in their collection. So the apprentice system back then in the Renaissance, again, the overall theme is the Renaissance man. There used to be a very organized system where someone could be mentored by an experienced painter. They would go through stages. He started being a gopher. Oh, go and get me some cappuccino. Mix those paints over there for me. And then maybe, after a while, he'd say, okay, I want you to paint this background and these trees. And I'm going to take care of Mona Lisa. Don't touch Mona Lisa, but you can do the tree. Things like that. It was a very cooperative, collaborative system. But yet today, we name things after one person. And we try to make one person the centerpiece. They do it in music bands too. After a while, it's not the Rolling Stones, it's Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. Diana Ross. I always saw the Supremes. Diana Ross and the Supremes? What's up with that? What happened? So, we have people who prosper and get a little more popular, and they can exert that influence. So same thing is happening in art. There are blue chip artists today that financial experts are telling you, if you want your portfolio to be truly diversified, you need to invest in art. But you have to get the right artists. And you have to deal with people who know what they're talking about. Sotheby's, Christie's. But there are independent folks right here in Westchester who can do that kind of work. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping Antique Roadshow, that's one of my favorite shows, and a very educational show. I will tell you that almost no one knows what they're bringing in. It's amazing how uneducated we are as a country about our own belongings. I just sit there and this one guy has a blanket that's been sitting on a chair for 20 years and it's worth like almost $1 million. I mean, the guy was crying, he falls down. He's like, oh, I can't believe, and he's thinking of all the stories, all the things he could have done with that money. But he didn't know, so knowledge is power. Okay, so this is me on the left there in 1968. Yes, I was a hippie. I started playing guitar after I saw the Beatles. And I got the music bug, my brother as well. And we had two friends that lived in the high metal development across the street from Arcadian Shopping Center. And we decided to put together a band. Now at the time, when I moved to Ossning in 1962, West Side Story was the big deal. I remember kids coming up to me, "Are you a jet? Are you a shark?" And I'm like, which one are you? Because if you said the wrong thing, they might beat you up or like, thank God that never did happen to me. But then I have another photograph in 2018. I'm playing at the Peekskill the Bean Runner Coffee House, playing an open mic. And the strangest thing of all to me is that I'm wearing a Levi jacket. So I had a thing for Levi jackets, and to this day, I actually have one, a special Levi jacket that has extra pockets. So I'm a real pocket person. So this has been a constant in my life, songwriting, performing. I've been a producer. I had a small studio in my apartment for 20 years, and I became vice president of the Westchester Songwriters Guild during this time. Then I was president for 2 years, and I would help other artists with their songs and knowledge, and we do what we call demos. Demonstrate what your song is. Put some lyrics to music. I play bass. I could do electronic percussion because I'm in an apartment now. You work with your headphones a lot. And would be able to accompany various musicians. And that was an extremely creative and an extremely happy time in my life. Now this is a gentleman on the left named Robert Fuchs. He went by the name of Robert Fox. I went by the name of Stephen Knight. Remember, I was working for corporate America. I did not want my name out. "Oh, Steve, this isn't serious what you're doing." "Yes, it is. I need a job. What are you talking about? Not serious." So we had a duo called Poetica, the Music of Words. We were both English majors. And we were both watching the same Channel 13 program. It was called the Dodge Festival, which happens every other year. And there was a jam taking place with a poet named Coleman Bart. And he was a specialist on the 13th century poet named Rumi.